Fans Talk Podcast family, fanstalkpodcast.com. This is episode 38 of Fans Talk Lucha. This week, we're going to recap and react to Lucha Underground Season 2, Episode 12, entitled Three's a Crowd. My name is Garvin, and this week's episode was really very all over the place as far as action in the ring. A lot of differing opinions as far as, where I stood as a Lucha Underground fan months and months and months ago for a few different people to where I am right now. So let's just do a quick rundown of the different stories and matches that took place this week. This week we saw our Heinous versus Killshot. Daaga. Daaga is a new competitor in the temple. He took on Tejano in a match to determine one of the 7 ancient Aztec medallions. We also saw Dragon Azteca, Puma, and Rey Mysterio in the main event in the Trios tournament to determine who would be the number 1 contender. So those are your matches. Let's go ahead and go down segment by match, by segment, by match, all those things. Just kind of run down everything that took place and talk about it. First of all, we had Cueto backstage talking about the Trios tournament and how he wants to make this season's Trios tournament so much better than it was last year. Last year, obviously, they did a lot of good things. This year, though, or this season, he wants to top it. So, in that segment, he was talking to Cage. Mundo and Taya were there as well, and obviously, this is one of those matches or teams, the unlikely teams. He kind of wants to recreate the good vibe that he got from Team Fight, Angelico, Ivelisse, and Son of Havoc. Basically, they were all enemies, but at the end of the day, they all came together to become Trios champions and, really set the tone for what that tournament was all about, what that division was all about. So he wants to do the same thing here with Mundo, Cage, and Taya all partnering up. Obviously, Cage and Johnny Mundo have been at odds for a very, very long time. So that's going to be coming up a little bit later on tonight. They reluctantly agreed, but they agreed knowing that they all want to hold gold here in Lucha Underground. First matchup was our Heinous versus Killshot, and our Heinous we haven't really seen a whole lot after Season 1. Season 1, he really, debuted, but he kind of fell off the map for the most part. Killshot, however, this match was primarily to continue to tell the story of Killshot and really develop the new character that they're trying to, push with him, to really develop where that character is going and how that, works with him in the ring. Killshot, as we saw last week, was built up in that video package that just went on about how he had the overall military background and basically that he was trained in that style to compete here in the temple. So lots of more push in that, and we saw Killshot. He had camo. He was wearing camo down to the ring and had some camo textures in his ring gear. He also had the dog tags. Definitely different person. Ishmael in the live chat is saying the same thing. Killshot was just a different person. He showed more focus. He showed more determination, and it was almost like he was more calculated. He wasn't, flying around the ring, at will like he had been in matches past, especially when he was the smaller guy in his Trios team. And now that he's solo and now that they're really pushing his character, it seemed like he was just more dominant, more focused, a lot more swagger. The only thing that bothered me about this match, and bothered me about the way that they pushed this, is they went real heavy on the military, like the military resemblance, and they continued to throw as many military references as possible in commentary. And it was just way overdone. Because it's like it seems like the commentary team is trying to play both sides. They're trying to make observations based on what they're seeing in the ring. They're not letting what we know has happened in backstage segments to kind of influence the way they're telling their story. But it seemed really forced on that side of things. But ultimately, Killshot, he looked completely different. Looked very, very good, and I'm really interested to see how that develops as we continue to move forward. The major spot for me in this match, the one that really set Killshot apart here, he caught a flying Hurricane Rana and basically turned it into a corkscrew brainbuster, and he never put our Heinous down. He held him the entire time from position to position, and it was just amazing to see. He's a smaller guy, but just to see the power that he had to be able to manipulate, our Heinous in that way. I thought it was really cool. Backstage, we had Dragon Azteca Jr. He walked up to Black Lotus, who was standing guard outside of Cueto's office, and confronted her, and almost was accusing her of going to the dark side, and he didn't understand why she would give up her integrity and everything to work for a guy like Cueto. And this is where it kind of got interesting, because you can go either way with this. But Black Lotus, put all the blame on Cueto, said that, this was not her decision. She's forced to, team with Cueto, and ultimately has had no interest in really doing that, was just pretending to side with him, and will get her revenge on Cueto and his family. I thought that was rather interesting, just because that kind of side of things hasn't really been shown thus far. Instead, she was kidnapped by Dragon Azteca. Yes, she was theoretically kidnapped by Cueto, but ultimately, it seems like she's playing both sides, and again, they can go in either direction with this. So either, she is true to her word to Dragon Azteca Jr. and is basically, playing possum until the right moment, or she's just playing Dragon Azteca. And there was a sign of that, because she did blame Matanza for killing Dragon Azteca. So again, it could go both ways, but it should be interesting to see how it plays out. Inside of Cueto's office, he's talking to a new fighter. The fighter's name is Daaga, I guess very well known and very well regarded in Mexican wrestling. He is coming to the temple to kind of, put his place on the map there. And Cueto wasn't necessarily willing to give him everything and give him, the top spot right away without a little bit of work and without, being able to see what he can do with a guy that he felt was, very dominant, very violent, and, heartless almost. And that guy was Tejano. So he basically booked Daaga versus Tejano in a match to determine who would be one of the 7 medallion holders in the Title of the Gods championship match. So that was the next match. It was Daaga versus Tejano. This was a really interesting match, and again, just playing with the idea of where I had been on a guy like Killshot months ago, to see, how they've been able to develop him and make him, interesting. They're doing a very good job with Killshot. Tejano is another guy that I've been really sour with, and again, it could be just because of who he's been competing against. We're talking Chavo, we're talking Daivari. I really didn't necessarily enjoy his work with Del Rio. So this was a new Tejano for me, and to see both of these guys go back and forth. We saw, in the opening sequence was like a very catch can style. And it was nice. It was nice to see that Tejano wasn't just a brawler, that he really could, wrestle with a very good wrestler. And Daaga showed that he was a very good wrestler. They did pump up, or hype up Daaga's, Japanese style and that stiff wrestling style that he has. We didn't really see a whole lot of it. He played the defensive for a good portion of this match. Also was favoring his arm. So I don't know if that was an injury that he sustained early on in the match, or if that was, whatever. That was just telling a story that we'll get into, in weeks to come. But I did feel it was very obvious that he was favoring the shoulder, but it didn't necessarily seem to stop him from being able to wrestle in his style and get, some very close calls with Tejano. Overall, it's a very good back and forth match. I'm interested in seeing what Daaga does in the future. But Tejano was the major star, the major player in this match. Really showed some great stuff and had a sit-down powerbomb finisher to end the match. And I thought it was very good. I thought, it was very good to see Tejano work with someone at the level that Daaga obviously is. After that match, we had a little more backstage video packages. Mil Muertes in front of some candles, seemingly meditating. Katrina walks in and makes the announcement that the Disciples of Death have been entered into the Trios tournament. So obviously they're going back to get those titles. Her vision is that they would hold the titles and Mil would hold the Lucha Underground Championship, thus, going back to where we were when we started the season. Mil, obviously, still upset with the Disciples of Death for losing that title. She begs them to show them mercy, to forgive them. It seems like he's really hesitant to do so. And ultimately, it does show tension in the group, but she sends them off and reminds Mil that he needs to concentrate on what will be his toughest battle, and that is Mil versus Matanza for the title. This is something that I've talked about the last few weeks, about how good Matanza has looked as that big, strong guy. Going up against Mil, I think this is a main event type match. This is a pay-per-view, level matchup to see, what these two big, beastly, dominant guys can do, against one another. Obviously, I think we've seen Mil versus Cage, and Cage is similar in size, but doesn't necessarily have the same mentality that they do. They do play up Cage's inability to, to retain some kind of level of maturity in the ring as far as keeping his temper down, keeping in focus of what he's in the match for. So to see Matanza versus Mil next week, I think that's going to be fantastic, and I cannot wait to see it. Live chat, seemingly around that same thought process. Ishmael just throwing out that he hopes Mil stops Matanza. I don't necessarily see it. I foresee Matanza sticking with the title for a bit longer, or sticking with that dominant, fearful role that he's in right now. And, to have Mill topple over him so quickly, I think would be a detriment to the story that they're trying to tell. Mill definitely could do it. Mill definitely, has earned his place in the company. But at the same time, you don't necessarily want to see Matanza take a loss right now. The main event was a match in the Trios tournament. We had Dragon Azteca Jr., Puma, and Rey Mysterio versus Cage, Mundo, and Taya. And this match was crazy. It was just all over the place. It was hard to keep track of everything. I don't think, I really didn't take many notes at all after the first minute or two. And, that first minute or so, you saw a very dominant Cage, basically no sell every single piece of offense that Puma threw at him, that Dragon Azteca threw at him. And that pretty much continued, throughout the match. There was that tension between Mundo, Taya, and Cage. Obviously, Mundo and Taya do not necessarily want to be in the ring with Cage. Definitely don't want to be partnered with him. So there was that tension, and it's a similar story that we saw, in the previous week's Trios tournament, where you had, this unexpected team up. And the difference here was that Cage, while, he was tagged out and he was not happy with that, he tagged himself in. He made sure that he was a part of that match and a part of the winning side. So, a lot of great action. One of the major moments that stood out to me, Cage, caught Puma into I think Puma was going for some kind of crossbody off the top rope or something along those lines. He caught him in the vertical suplex. Fantastic. Also, we saw him holding up Puma on his shoulder like in a fireman's style carry, and Dragon Azteca dives on him from the top rope, only to get caught as well. So Cage had both Puma and Dragon Azteca Jr. on his shoulders, was able to hit that variation of it was like a Samoa drop throw, almost like a pump handle slam type throw. Very, very cool to showcase what Cage can do as far as his strength. But yeah, they Ishmael in the live chat saying the match was crazy. I totally agree with that. It was just it was unbelievable. Just the amount of activity going on. Rey Mysterio obviously played a good part in that way. Diva Joe, thank you. Fall away slam / Samoan drop. That sort of move. Yeah. And again, being able to do that to two guys, being able to hold a guy up on your shoulders and catch someone flying at you to get into that move, just fantastic. So, this whole, I'm not a man, I'm a machine. It really starts to become a legitimate thing when he does things like that. So, beanbags throwing out just the idea that, Dragon Azteca looked good in this match. I agree. I think, previously I was pretty down with him. I was a little disappointed just because in Aztec Warfare, he didn't do a whole lot. He was eliminated early on in his, in his debut. And this was an opportunity for him to really showcase what he can do. His speed, his ability to work around the ring, work with larger guys, work with guys like Johnny Mundo. And I thought, overall he looked very good. Taya, again, she's got something different about her than the other women wrestlers in Lucha Underground. She's just, she's not, I don't know. Fragile's not the word. Cautious. She's not cautious. She goes in to fight regardless of who is in there. She's cocky when she does it. And it really shows like her ability to wrestle, no matter what. So I'm a huge fan of Taya right now. I don't know what it's going to lead to. Unfortunately, she's buried underneath Johnny Mundo's, shadow. But I think eventually it would be nice to see her compete for, some kind of singles title, whether that's the title of the gods or if that is something else that they bring in. But I really see a good future for her. So yeah, I'm totally down with Taya. The fact that she does get destroyed. I mean, this is being talked about in the live chat as well. Like, a few weeks back, Ishmael's noting that Cage put Taya through 2 tables. And after that happened, she still stood up. She still fought. And to see her now competing, pretty much at 100% this early on after something like that is just fantastic to see. I don't think we would have seen that with the other women. And I don't think we would really see that with a lot of other wrestlers. They would have played towards, an injury or played towards, being somewhat intimidated, but she's not. So very, very cool. Dragon Azteca, Puma, and Rey Mysterio did advance. So the team that I think most likely will win this tournament, they did advance in the first round. I'm not sure who they're going to be facing next. Right now we've got Joey Ryan, and the Crew have also advanced. So those are your 2 teams right now. It should be interesting to see how things move forward. Backstage, as the show ended, we saw Cueto talking to Matanza, reminding him of why he is kept in the cage. And it went Cueto level creepy, where he, basically reached through the bars of the cell to caress Matanza and explain his love for him and how, you protect the crown jewels. You protect things that are valuable to you. And Matanza is definitely valuable to Dario Cueto. So, but it was, again, just kind of continuing that story of, how Matanza needs to be caged to, retain some of that energy, especially next week. Mil versus Matanza, should be great. Man. So, before we go into the wins and fails of the week, and everyone in the live chat, please feel free to put in your wins and fails. Just want to take a quick break to kind of remind you of Patreon. This episode of Fans Talk Lucha has been brought to you by the great supporters in our community, the great members of our community, the Squared Circle of Trust. And because of your help, we're able to afford the cost of producing these episodes, as well as distributing them, hosting them, all that sort of stuff. It allows us to, spend a little bit more time on the creative side rather than the financial side. So we definitely appreciate all the help that you have, shown so far. And if you haven't started supporting us yet, you enjoy your time with us each and every week, please pledge $1 a month or more over on squaredcircleoftrust.com. Now, let's go ahead and go into win fail. For those listening for the first time, this is our opportunity to acknowledge both the best and worst things that happened this week on Lucha Underground. For me, my win of the week, I think, is going to have to go to Taya. I mean, overall, Taya is quickly becoming one of my favorite wrestlers. She's got that tenacity. She's got that cockiness. But she's got the ability to really go up against any talent that Cueto puts her in front of. And again, to see someone, well, I mean, let's be honest, to see a woman wrestler in this role be as good and be as dominant and not shy of a fight, especially against a guy like Cage. It's just great. It's just great to see. So, so my win of the week is going to go to Taya. My fail of the week. is that it was over. It was over before I was ready. I hate to fall back on that one, but ultimately, like, Lucha Underground continues to hit at every single level for me. And, the fact that we only get about 40 to 45 minutes of solid content each and every week, it's a shame. I want more. I can't wait for next week. From the live chat, we've got Cage. Cage getting a win just because of everything that he did this week. The Trios tournament match in the main event. Beanbags is saying that was his, favorite wrestling match so far in 2016. I can definitely agree with that. It was very fun. Ishmael's also throwing out the main event as his win of the week. And yeah, as far as fails, live chat, Diva Jill, Ishmael, Beanbags, we're all in agreement. There really wasn't a fail this week for anything. Everything was so good. It was so on par to what we're used to in Lucha Underground. So yeah, totally agree. Diva Jill is throwing out a fail because I am using the shorthand Cage and not calling him by his real name. So apologies. Man. All right. And that is it for this week's episode of Fans Talk Lucha. The series, as well as the rest of the podcast, released through fanstalkpodcast.com, are supported exclusively by our Patreon subscribers, and you can subscribe today for as little as $1 a month or more to receive early access to our content, attend the live chat, see the live recording, as well as get your ears on some exclusive content that we produce throughout the month. So, my name is Garvin. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Pretty much I think this is our first live episode of Fans Talk Lucha. So, thank you for jumping on board. Diva Joe, Beanbags, Ishmael, great to see you. And we will see you next week. Adios. Fans Talk Lucha is part of the Fans Talk podcast family. It can be found at fanstalklucha.com. The Fans Talk podcast family is a subsidiary of Tigar Creative, LLC.